So my diagnosis, I was diagnosed in March 2019. I was referred in January 2018. I had been feeling quite unwell for some time mentally, nothing to do with anything, just in myself, just, you know, I couldn't motivate myself. I was feeling down. After some conversations with my mum, who is autistic, she said that she had suspected for some time that I probably was, and that I should probably go and talk to the GP about it. So I went to my GP and I asked for a referral to be seen by the team who diagnose. She initially kind of asked me if I really thought that was it. Did I really think I had autism? And, you know, I said to her, look, at this point, I'm really struggling and I just want to find out what's wrong with me. I'm quite frustrated. I do not seem to be getting better with the treatment that you're giving me, and I'm really struggling. So I was referred and my appointment took place in March 2019. So during that time, they kind of just sent me a letter and just said, you need to wait until the appointment comes through. There's a really long waiting list. As I said in my previous video, diagnosis in women is quite low. Our issues often appear as poor mental health, and that's exactly what I was diagnosed with. You rarely ever go to a GP and tell them absolutely everything that goes wrong, and everything that you feel, and, you know, that's not what they're there for. Or rather, maybe that is what they're there for, and maybe we're not using them enough, or we're not going to them for the right things. We know that that's the thing, but that's a whole separate thing. You know, you rarely ever see the same GP from when you're younger to when you're older. I wasn't really a sick child, although I had problems. They kind of never really caused anything more than, you know, just me being upset and things like that. So, you know, my mum and dad kind of just let me get on with it. They let me have the freedom to be how I wanted to be. They never pushed me to socialise. They never pushed me to make friends. They never pushed me to go to clubs. You know, they kind of just knew that there was something wrong, but they didn't want to, you know, start going around and saying, oh, there's something wrong with her, there's something wrong with her. I was a really shy child. I was really quiet. It was only when I really got to secondary school that I kind of started misbehaving, and I just couldn't control myself. With women, we often find it hard to, autistic women that is, to control. When we have a high emotion or a low emotion, we can rarely ever bring ourselves back down, and we find it really hard to bring ourselves back up. So hormones, being a teenage girl, being autistic, just completely blew up. I think anyone I went to school with, if you're watching this, will know I was an absolute nightmare. If I had had the proper help, if I'd had the proper support, I probably would have done better. But, you know, it is what it is, and we're here. So my diagnostic journey was quite long. I waited 1.5 years for an appointment. In that time, didn't really know what to do with myself. I couldn't really find any podcasts. I couldn't find, you know, any YouTubers or anything like that I could watch. A lot of the ones I did find were men, which is great, amazing, fully support it, love it. Problem is, women with autism are very different to men with autism. Being autistic is different for everyone. We're all different. None of our symptoms are the same. It's not the case of having a long list of these symptoms that everyone is thingied. It's called a spectrum for a reason. These difficulties affect everyone in different ways. So on the day of my diagnosis, I went to the place where I had the appointment. I had a very lovely lady, her name was Joy, and she was absolutely lovely. My mum came with me. They always recommend that you bring someone who knew you as a child or a parent, just so that they can get an idea of what you were like during your early developmental years, because obviously a lot of children are diagnosed with autism and it's quite easy to spot, but it's a lot of male children, not a lot of female children. So my appointment was 3 hours long. It was very emotional. I wasn't prepared for how much I was going to cry, how upset I was going to get, how panicked I was going to get. I suffer with quite a bad anxiety, and communication is with people I don't know is quite bad anyway. So meeting this lady who was very lovely, and talking about how I felt, and you know, I've always struggled to tell people purely because I feel stupid. I feel like an idiot telling people how I feel. That I'm, you know, I like going out with my friends, but I won't walk to the local shop by myself because I'm scared. Or that the idea of talking to someone I don't know and walking up to someone and just having a conversation is just, I would rather the ground swallow me up. And I think a lot of people will go, well, oh, I feel that way, or, you know, that's how I feel. You know, to a point where it fills me with such dread that, you know, for a whole year when I was 18, I didn't leave the house just because I was so scared that I would have to speak to someone, or, you know, I didn't know what to do with myself. So once I was diagnosed, I found out on the day. Don't always find out on the day. That's not given, so don't take my word for that. That's, you know, it was just she told me straight away that I had autism. I was relieved, but I had to wait for my paperwork. So you can wait anything up to 12 weeks to get all your paperwork back with all the information written on it. I felt scared. I was relieved. I was happy that I had finally found out what was wrong with me, and why I felt the way I did. Not so much that I needed a label, more so that I needed a better way of understanding why I felt the way I did, and why such normal things seemed so abnormal to me, or, you know, the things that we're told we have to do, often I couldn't do. You know, I know loads of people who go out and make friends, they join clubs. Just, to me, that just seemed like my worst nightmare. And I think meeting other people with autism, even then I still would kind of be a bit like, oh God, how do I communicate with people? I just don't know how to do that. And, you know, but I'm glad that I've had someone tell me why that is, that it's not just me, it's not just there's something specifically wrong with me, but there are other people that have this issue. I was just relieved to be told that I was not the only person who has this issue. Not that I thought I was, but that the way I felt wasn't stupid. The way I felt wasn't, I wasn't a baby, I wasn't a brat, I wasn't just, you know. It's a lot to come to terms with though, and I think telling people you're autistic is scary. Not a lot of people know what autism is or understand how it affects you. So, you know, it's hard to explain to people that I struggle with communication, or I'm anxious, or I go into sensory overload over the simplest things like repetitive sounds, loud noises, flashing lights, things like that. It's so hard to tell, because people will always go, yeah, well, same, and I get that. You know, autistic people are not the only people who struggle with these issues, and it's just that we struggle with all of those issues all at once. So I will feel panic and sensory overload and fear and anxiety all at the same time, and it's intense. It basically just shuts your brain down and makes you want to just go back to sleep. Often if I'm overwhelmed at weekends, often I'll just sleep. I think a lot of people find that strange. All my friends are out at festivals and doing things. While all my friends are out at festivals and doing things, I'm sat in my room, or I'm doing something, or I'm writing. And I think a lot of people find that weird. It's just the idea of doing those things isn't like I don't want to do them or I'm never going to do them. It's just that at that moment I don't want to do it. I think educating people more on what autism is will really help a lot of people. It's quite hard as a 26-year-old woman who wants to date, who wants to make friends. What do you tell people? Do you tell someone you're dating that you're autistic? Do you tell your new friends? Do you just go, hi, my name's Georgia, I'm autistic, be my friend? Because do they want to be your friend? Do they know what that is? Do they understand? Are they scared? Are they worried that you're going to do something? There's a lot of stigma around it, and it's really hard to explain to people that we're not that different, but we are different. If you suspect that you might be autistic, I would recommend speaking to a GP, doing a bit of research. Talk to your family. They know what you were like growing up, what you were like as a child, how you developed. I obviously was there when I was 6, but I wasn't there when I was 6. I didn't know that when I was 4, I used to like to walk around collecting rubbish in a bag. That might sound really outrageous to some people, thinking I just walked around picking up rubbish in a bag. But that's a huge sign. I was collecting things. I was interested in going around and picking things up, and I wanted to make things out of it. And, that could just seem like really normal things. But to us now, knowing that I'm autistic, that is a big red flag. I would say don't be scared. It can be emotional, and you can always ask for a second opinion if your GP says no. Often or not, they'll say no because they suspect that it might not be the case, but if it is the case, then you want to obviously get a second opinion. It might be something else, it could be something completely different, which is why I would recommend definitely researching into it. Think about your patterns of behaviour, write down notes. What really helped me was that I would write down things that I felt were really silly but actually made quite a lot of sense. I think I should stress as well that there is no such thing as high functioning. I think seemingly to people I come across as if I'm quite high functioning, but I mask quite a lot of my problems, and I often hide a lot of things. I tend to do a lot of my weird autistic stuff in private. I am a professional. I work in a professional work environment. I love my colleagues. I love my job. I love my work. Everyone is so supportive of me. But there's a lot of weird stuff that I kind of try not to do, just because I feel it's not appropriate at the time. And I think a lot of people would be a bit like, oh well, you know, I do a lot of weird stuff, and it's like, well, okay, you know, if you're planning to go through a diagnosis, talk to your friends, talk to your family. I didn't tell all my friends, I just told a select few. Obviously told my family, I told my employer, but I didn't broadcast it anywhere. I didn't post it on social media, because it wasn't set in stone yet. It was just a diagnostic journey. It didn't need to be plastered everywhere. It could have come out that I wasn't autistic and there was something else wrong with me, but at least I had ruled that out. It's important to look after your health and well-being, and even just ticking things off a list to make sure that it's not that really helps with you. And I wish I had done it a long time ago. I've been diagnosed with various mental health conditions over the last 10 years that I don't have, or rather I do have, but not in the capacity that I was being treated for. So it was hard because it made me worse, I feel, because I didn't know what was wrong with me, and it exacerbated the issue. Everything happens for a reason, and although my life probably would have been easier if I'd been diagnosed sooner, that's life, and I'm here now, I'm living through it now, and I'm coping with it now. Actually, I'm quite glad that it happened now. I think I have the mental capacity to deal with it now. I have the maturity to deal with it now. It's a lot to take on. It's a lot of information. There's a lot to take in, and I feel like if I had known sooner, I probably would have been in a worse state than I am now. I've built a career. I've built a good friendship group. I have an amazingly supportive family, and you know, I have a good life, and I wouldn't change that for anything. And I built that all while being autistic and not knowing. So what else can I do now that I am autistic and I do know? Can I propel that further, or can I let it set me back? And I'm not going to let it set me back, and I'm not going to let it define me either. I'm going to talk about it, and obviously it's a massive part of who I am, but I'm not just that autistic girl that you work with, or you know, or you know, your friend of a friend. You know, I'm a person who's autistic. I'm not Autistic G. I'm autistic. If you want to find out more about being diagnosed, or you're wanting to find out more information about autism, a great resource is the National Autistic Society. That's the first place I went when I wanted to look into it, or look into everything to do with basically everything. They have resources for family, employers, autistic people, anything you can think of, they have it on there, and they are absolutely amazing. I hope this video helps at least one other person. If you ever want to talk about anything to do with anything I've talked about in this video or any other video that I post, please feel free to contact me at the social media links at the end of this video. Thank you.